It's pretty easy to make fun of Hasbro these days, between the RID line being really cheaply made and the Combiner War line being really repetitive. However, you have to give them credit. The last couple years, they've really been trying to satisfy their hardcore audience. We got the return of Headmasters, an entire line of Combiners, a new Devastator, and like the return of Triple Changers. All these different things that fans have been wanting for years all of a sudden started coming out. And no mountain higher to climb than Arcee, the original G1 hot pink Autobot that never got a toy in G1, never got any kind of mass release toy, and even when the animated line finally did one, Hasbro just could not let a toy come out in pink, and they came up with this weird magenta thing, and they only sold it at Toys R Us. Here, no. The new generation's Arcee, bubblegum pink, no fear here. Though they did add a lot more black to give it a little bit more of a sharper look. It's very Bret Hart. Though she still has the off-white going through her, so she actually does have a very G1 Arcee, very Barbie-esque color scheme. Like, I hate to admit that. I do think it's much needed in the toy market. I mean, we're in this age where you're seeing more cross-play between girls playing with boys' toys and vice versa. Just with comic book characters getting cool across the boards and what My Little Pony did. This is something that Hasbro really needed to attempt and actually have no fear in doing. And it seemed to go over pretty well, so I don't think it ended up too badly. She is very much her G1 Arcee vehicle mode, which is this little sports coupe convertible thing of a futuristic, spacey design. I always liked this vehicle. It's extremely impractical looking, but very futuristic, very sleek. I like it. I like it quite a bit. You will notice it's not the most solid of vehicle modes. You can obviously see where her knees are, and the legs do blend into the rear very nicely. Yeah, the illusion starts to get broken up around in there. So, not the greatest. I do like little design touches, like since she's open top, you have an entire dashboard in there. You have a little view screen that you can see in there, as well as the wheel, of course, with 2 seats molded in. I love this. It's such a tiny little design. I'm happy they actually went to the effort to actually include that. It's very cool. You can see some headlights that are painted in a metallic blue, along with a little bit of tip for the grille. Translucent blue windshield, and the translucent plastic is doing nothing, which is what translucent plastic needs to do to prevent any kind of self-destruction later on in life. And from there, it's pretty standard stuff. I like the antenna in the back. It's kind of Blur-esque, but it's G1 accurate, so we give it to her. Autobot symbol in the front. Pretty typical stuff. She doesn't have a lot of heavy molding in here, since her vehicle mode was always designed to be extremely sleek. In that, I will say, she rolls kind of okay. Part of her transformation does involve angling the wheels in a certain way, so if you don't have them just right, you aren't going to get a very good roll out of her. So you kind of have to make sure that everything is lined up correctly. Now, you can also see around the rear, you have these rectangular ports. This is for weapon mounting. And for her, she does have a few stored away. But first, we're going to go with the swords, because we all know IDW Arcee now. And IDW Arcee wields swords. Of course she does. So any Arcee toy now is gonna pack those. They do have tabs on them for actually fitting into those little square pegs in this more direct approach. I kind of like how they look there, but I guess they're kind of meant to go on the side. They're shaped that way anyway. So, but I don't see the practicality to this. Like, unless she has some like hidden flight mode I'm not aware of. They are shaped to fit there, but they don't seem like they're doing anything. She'd have to sideswipe really close in order to get any kind of cut out of these. So it's a little goofy looking, just a little. A lot of weapon mount modes are goofy looking, but hey, it lets you do something with the toy. It gives you a little bit more play value, so not a whole lot to complain about. She does have other weapons you can use in vehicle mode. They're all stored away. Her guns, for instance, can also peg in. She has sides. She has ports on the side, though that would drag on the ground, so we can't do that. These, she can peg up that way, or big handle sticking out the top, which I think makes a lot more sense in context than actual just swords just sticking off the side. Now, the interesting thing is she does have ports for everything. She has 4 weapons, 2 swords, 2 blasters. However, one of the blasters, interestingly enough, is part of the transformation. This actually, this black piece is actually an extra gun, which is part of her transformation because that's what her hands hold on to while they're tucked in underneath. And one thing about this, unfortunately, it is super tight. Okay. This is problematic. Just because the friction in there is way too tight. So we're going to apply just a little bit of leverage. I'm going to be careful here. Just nice, even pressure. Don't want to stress or push anything too much. There we go. Now we've broken the transformation apart, so yeah. All that just to show that. Just to show you can do it. So, since we already showed you some of how the transformation works, let's just go ahead and go to the rest of it. We pop off the legs. Fold all of this out. All of this comes down. I can fold the legs down like this. They are double hinged to lock up that direction. Get the ankle tilts forward to form the feet. Now, from up top, we can take the arms, and hang on, I'm getting there. We can take the arms and swivel them down into place. Her belly swings up like so, and we can dislodge the chest section. There's a lot of accordion going on in this particular transformation, so we'll unhinge. Bring all of this down. You'll see these kind of hook into the shoulder bits and clamp down as so. And her midsection all squeezes up like that. We did it a little bit out of order, but that's not terrible. So we can get that out of the way. Bring the head down into place. And with that, we have a very, very G1 looking Arcee. And it only took like almost 30 years. Yeesh. So, as usual, we start in with the close-up of the head, which is done extremely nicely. It's very G1 accurate. This is the happier Arcee, the friendlier one. Not the psychotic, bloodthirsty one we've seen in the comic books. That one would be a little bit much here. And I know people who've swapped out the head for fan-made ones that actually look more like the IDW. I can understand. It's a cool character. This is the Arcee I've always wanted. Leia, hair buns, and everything. She has a light pipe, too, and it's a fairly big window and a fairly light shade of blue, so if there's a little bit of light behind her, the eyes do actually shine pretty good. I like the form of her. She's got the G1 form. It's very feminine, wide hips, slender parts all around. And there are certain other elements to it that I enjoy. For instance, the high heels are molded in, but they didn't leave it that way, knowing trying to balance a toy on high heels is stupid. There is a proper heel spur, so she can actually stand up stable, in spite of what is admittedly a very large backpack. Now, I will admit, the G1 design does come with a backpack built in. You see him behind her shoulders in every episode of the cartoon she appears in, and indeed, this is completely accurate. However, yeah, a lot of shell. Now, the important thing to remember about the engineering to the toy, this was originally done by a guy who entered Bakkan Japan's a customizing contest there with a G1 styled RC that he made, and it went over incredibly well. The guy went on to be a toy designer, started working for Takara, and when RCs finally came up in generations, he got to make his design real. So this is actually like this is like a mass production version of his fan-made RC, which makes me appreciate it a lot more in spite of any little cheating that they had to do or how much shell that was included. So what's the big thing for me is I really don't think there's any way of creating a perfect G1 Arcee without having a backpack of parts, just because her design is so slender. There really isn't any kind of bulk to create a proper vehicle mode and still get an accurate looking RC. So it's a necessary evil in this case. I do wish a piece of this, I do wish this kind of hinged out and like formed downward just a little bit, just so from the front all you could see are the pieces that stuck up on our original character design. Beyond that, I really don't mind it too much. It's a necessary evil thing. It's not a terrible one. So you can see a lot of detail is shown. Shell formers do excel at detail just coming out. A lot more white is now being shown. We've got no extra blue aside from a tiny little bit on the legs, and a lot more of the pink going on too. I will credit Hasbro. They finally had the guts to make a completely pink RC, and they did a really nice job on it. I mean, Takara kind of got rid of some of the black to make her more G1 accurate, but I really can't fault them here. I mean, it's spot on. I do wish there was an Autobot logo somewhere on her chest, but beyond that, I really find no real fault with how she looks. It's pretty RC to me. We have a ball-jointed neck hinge, or ball-jointed neck, which is not a hinge. It's a translucent socket, so be careful. Ball-jointed shoulders with a bicep rotation, as well as a faux ratcheted effect. Some detents in the elbow. No waist articulation, because her torso's in two vertical halves. She has forward thigh motion. She has forward motion at the hips. And it is a universal joint, but outward does not have a lot unless you cheat the transformation a little bit. And it starts looking weird the more you do that. Unfortunately, because of how they transform, the hips start looking a little bit funky from certain angles. So you kind of have to be careful of how you pose her. Let's see, we have a thigh rotation just above the knee, as well as a very good knee bend, and ankles that rock in both directions. RC does give you some good posing potential. So, there's a few, the hips are a little weird, but she still works out. She still gets some decent poses out of her. Now, here comes the big part. Here comes the weird part. Now, for starters, you can see two of the mounting points that we had in vehicle mode are now available here, as well as two new mounting points there and there. So she has a lot of places to hide a lot of her weaponry. She also has those peg holes in her forearms, so she can hold her swords as you normally would in the hand, or she can mount them as actual arm blades, a la Mortal Kombat Baraka, which I kind of prefer to do, not only because I like the look of having both of them attached, which we'll do very quickly, because, hey, this review is already going a little bit longer than it technically should for a deluxe toy. Bada boom, there you go. Looks nice to me. But the real reason I do that is because this RC toy has always had some hand issues. If you can see on mine, I got the version where there's some extra plastic molded into the bottom that keeps the handles from going in too far, which makes it look like she's barely holding on to anything. There's another version of this toy where there is no extra plastic piece in there, and the hand got stressed and broken very easily. So that's the problem with creating a deluxe size RC. Those slender proportions, especially when you get to things like the hands that have to hold on to things, really does not work out when you have to apply things like physics. So it's a little bit unfortunate. The swords kind of go okay. The guns are where it really starts to get ridiculous and show that, yeah, the hands are problematic. That does not look right. That just does not look right. Arcee was a gunner. Arcee was a pretty good shot with a blaster, aside from the part where she flooded all her friends out of Unicron. But beyond that, this looks like this looks like her first time at the firing range. How do I use it again? Like, don't point it at anyone. What? What? No. It's unfortunate. The other version can hold them much better, but then you also risk breakage, so it's a no-win either way. So all that, in a nutshell, is Generations Arcee. Hasbro finally did it. They finally gave us a G1 looking Arcee, and they didn't screw with the colors for no reason. It's a brave new world where a boy's toy can be done up in Barbie pink and fans cry out in joy rather than horror. And I certainly hope it continues because, I don't know, like, I kind of get tired of all the shortcuts they make on Arcees. They're pink, they're maroon, they're more white than pink. You know, at least we finally got this one.